Hello Sinetamer team, welcome back to Tech Training. This will be Module 5 in our Tech Training series. In this particular module we're going to talk about some of the basics of selling, then we'll get into the what, when, where, why, what and who and all those kind of questions of products we can sell into which specific applications. So let's cover a few basics in getting down to selling. Setting up the appointment and things of that sort. Number one, turn off your cell phone. Remember, the person you're talking to is the most important person on the planet. If you take a phone call in the midst of your meeting, unless it's your wife or maybe your mother, that indicates just a lack of respect for the person that you're talking to. So please, don't take phone calls in the midst of a sales presentation or meeting. Even if you're in a meeting with someone else, another salesperson that maybe you're training or coaching, don't take a phone call. It can wait. Now, when you get into the meeting, get into the discussions, what's one of the most important things to remember as you get started? Right. Never say, what kind of problems are you having? Why? Well, they're paid a lot of money most probably not to have problems. And if they did have some problems, unless this is your brother or your sister, they're not going to tell you what kind of problems they're having. So, what are we really trying to detect in our conversations? We're trying to detect any type of erratic operations, any random resets or lockups or reprograms, some headache areas. Maybe, if your phone rings, you look down, you see who it is, you go, oh, what's the situation? The idea is to create some conversation, create dialogue about the facility so that you can carry the conversation a little bit farther into illustrating why Sinetamer could be their solution. Okay, so getting down to the basics. Do you know the person you're visiting? Make sure you get some background on the client. Company website. LinkedIn is a great resource for finding out a little more information about the person you might be seeing. Secondly, or maybe most importantly, do not talk too much. The biggest challenge we have in training and educating our salespeople is don't talk so much. Remember, it's not your position. Not what you want to do is tell them the greatest things about Sinetamer from A to Z. No, listen to them. Listen for their pain points. Remember, people buy for one of two reasons: fear of loss or hope for gain. Your mission in this interview process is to create a story where the client is the main character. He has a problem or an issue. The only thing you want to be is the guide. Sinetamer is the plan. And you want to create that call to action so that Sinetamer can be the solution to the issue that the main character is having. Sinetamer is not the main character. You're not the main character. Frequency attenuation is not the main character. 25-year warranty is not the main character. The call to action is you want to get a survey. Secondly, you want to get a purchase order. So, how do we create dialogue? We ask questions. Questions like, do you find it a need to reboot or reprogram some of your drives or your PLCs? Do you have some random nuisance trippings or momentary blackouts that cause maybe your drives to trip out? Or about any replacements of critical printed circuit boards or solid state controls? Are you having some routine, early replacements of your lamps and ballast, maybe your LED tubes? Are you having any lightning damage? Are you seeing some issues with your fire alarms or maybe your security systems? Have you experienced any compressor failures or control board failures in some of your HVAC or refrigeration equipment? Tripping of your UPS systems, maybe what seems to be premature replacement of batteries in your UPS system, shortened battery life. Have you found a need to unplug or disconnect some of your critical computers or your POS systems during storms because you're afraid of that downtime? Have you experienced or seen the need to reboot PLCs or PCs that have gotten locked up in your offices? All of these ideas, all these questions are designed to elicit conversation so that you can take mental notes on what has been transpiring in the facility so that you can paint this story of how Sinetamer can alleviate those headaches. So, what's the concept when we start talking about Sinetamer and the survey process or the recommendation process? It's supply voltage, control voltage. Our objective is a minimum of 2 levels of protection, 2 zones of protection. So what we want to do is we want to isolate and protect. We want to identify the most important sensitive equipment and create this 2-stage zone of protection around that critical piece of equipment. First the control voltage, then the supply voltage. Maybe in a lot of instances, you want to go one step up to the mains to cover 100% of the external and internal protection for that one particular piece of equipment. Now, remember this, some issues are only seen just as routine. They're not considered problems or challenges. You know, if the machine operator is rebooting the machine or reloading that PLC program once a week or once a month, it's no longer a problem. It's just standard operating procedures. So be aware of that when you're creating this dialogue. Now, as we know, the industrial manufacturing zones or companies are typically the most important clients that we have. Here you have a lot of critical and sensitive equipment. Create these protection zones. In these scenarios, it's most likely not going to be possible if you get, this grand, huge survey of the whole, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 square meter facility. The idea is zero in on those pain points. Zero in on those areas of perceived need and of the greatest value to the company itself. The robotics, the control cabinets, the CNCs, the X-rays and MRIs, cell sites, the alarm panels. Try to create those 2 zones, AC to DC, or maybe AC to data. In commercial buildings, where we're just looking at an overall protection of the electronic equipment, mains to the distribution boards. That's the idea. So, as you can imagine with the wide variety of products that you've seen throughout our tech training, a lot of the question is, what do we use? What do we recommend? And so when we start looking at the different types of equipment, it's really, really important to memorize or to remember that surge protection is what? It's an art form. It is not an exact science. A lot of the recommendations that we'll make are just that. They're recommendations. Many times the amperage loads are minimum acceptable based on the criticality or the exposure to large surges and transients. It's possible to use a higher amperage rated device on a lower panel, but as we've discussed in the past, it's really not logical to use an RMST40 on a 3,000 amp panel. Then the potentiality of a higher level of surge current on that size of panel is much, much, much greater. So what do we protect? What unit do I use? Well, as I mentioned, we begin with the most critical, sensitive equipment first. Isolate that from the electrical environment by selecting the most appropriate unit. What is that most appropriate unit? We're looking at the voltage and the number of phases, its location in the facility itself. That's how we start our recommendation or our selection process. Now, in your goings about, if you come across any situation where you may come across an unusual voltage or the connection time might be a little bit abnormal, make a drawing. Send it to your manager, send it to us here at corporate. We may have already designed a unit that we could get the information out to you right quick, or if not, the possibility of us designing a unit is pretty high. Let's just say it that way. Now, Remember one thing, you never tell a customer that you can't do it. Tell them, let me get back to you after I talk to our engineering department and to see what we can do. Never tell a customer no. What are our key industries? Bottling, packaging, processing, CNC operations, robotic manufacturing, casinos, steel mills, airports. These are key areas. I encourage you to get into Dropbox and look at our success stories. We've got a lot of them broken down by different areas. Get an idea of the clients that have used in the industry that have used our products, and be able to name drop. That's real important. So, what can we sell, and to whom, to protect, and what? So let's start with a few different varieties of pieces of equipment. First we'll look at is UPS systems. People say, oh, want a UPS system just eliminate all the problems? Absolutely not. You know, we've got the test to show that. So when we're looking at protecting UPS systems, the idea is protect the input of the UPS system. Single phase systems, it's the ST-SP type, depending on 120 or 240 voltages. Three-phase systems up to 250 amps. The RMST40 is a great unit to do that for. Why are we protecting the input to the UPS? Two reasons. Number one, that is a smart electronic piece of equipment, and it's got microprocessors in it to do its operations. Secondly, we found in our investigations that a significant amount of transient voltage between phase and ground can go directly to the connected load. So by protecting the input, we're able to enhance the life of the equipment. We're able to reduce its maintenance and downtime by doing so. Now, also on some of our other photos here, you can see where we've done installations. The back is towards the input. Main panels on the larger units. In fact, we can go up to, I think in our nomenclature, a 300 kVA unit, and then we're looking at maybe an RMST 120, depending on the voltage. But typically you wouldn't need to go much higher than that, because that's about 800 amps, and that'll absolutely protect everything you need to protect. So that's about the maximum on that. What about security and fire alarm systems? You've got typically the 120 volts or 240 volt AC input. You're going to have a variety of contactors or door closures that are feeding out to various areas in the plant. You can look at the CLP units for those. We just need to know that operating voltage, obviously. Video surveillance and security systems. Again, just take notes. Make notes of what type of connections there are. Different types of coaxes, F or B and C. The data lines, again, the CLP units. How about parking lot lighting? High mast parking lot lighting. A pretty fair area for application of Sinetamer units. Typically, we're looking at usually a 480 volt. We can do the SP480-P or a smaller unit as required. Traffic light controls. Wonderful application. Typically, if you can, try to get the two levels. This would be the AC, which would be either an ST SPT 1P2 or 1P1-15 installed in series. Many times there may be a secondary level of an RJ45 or an RJ14 if it's a phone line or a data line. You can get a unit installed there. But these are wonderful applications. We've got a lot of success stories from around the world on protecting traffic light controls and watching that maintenance and that ROI just be quite significant. Here at bread and butter, our control cabinets, PLCs, supply voltage, control voltage. Typically you're looking at the RMST40 or RMST60, ST SP1P1, 1P2-P or -15. Again, this one top photo here is the actual PLC from that Coca-Cola bottling or labeling machine from back in our first application in uncovering, discovering our terminology of software confusion. Again, you're looking at the supply voltage and the control voltage. Determine what that is, make the specific application for it. Main distribution panels. We know all this, but here's your amperage and your voltage breakdown on the model numbers. So whatever that mains are, main circuit breaker rating, there's the typical units you would utilize. Automatic transfer switches, again, in parallel with the bus bars, typically on the load side of that generator automatic transfer switch, 1800 amps and down. It's very well recognized there. Notice the nice twisted cables or braided cables on the unit itself there. Now, one of the most prolific applications, thank you Schneider ABB and all our friends there manufacturing drives. We can start with the lowest level drive. This is a picture of a powerhouse and an oil field application. 100 horsepower drives where we're utilizing RES series or the RMST40 series. As you get higher in amperage, where you're going to have multiple layers, possibly have the up to 200 horsepower, 400 horsepower, RMST120, RMST180. Servo drives, depending on the criticality, would depend on whether or not it's an application you want to go after, but I always like the RMST40 the best. Oil field, if you're in an application where oil field, you have possible oil field applications. High lightning areas, really want to push for that 3 levels. The main, the inverters, and the PLC. Anytime you get typically at 300 horsepower or 300 kW or above, you can look at this multiple layers. Some applications with 12 pulse drives, you've got 1 main and then 2 on the inverters. Low lightning areas, main on the LSEA and the secondary one, RMST40. CNC machine tools, tremendous application. We have applications for manufacturers from all across the world. It's possible to get by with 1 unit. We always prefer 2. So then you're looking at the RMST 60 or 40, maybe an RMST 120, and then find out what that control voltage is. So to protect that, the most critical, nerve center of the CNC itself. Mobile phones, cell phone shelters, base stations. Again, wonderful applications. A lot of times you're dealing with situations where there's not a lot of margin. Some of the low-end Class 1, Class 2 devices have been specified because of cost. So, do your homework. Again, 2 levels of protection, RMST 180, secondary and LAST 120. Depending on the location, if it's high lightning zones. Higher lightning zones, look at the LAST 180 in the secondary of the ST SP1P2 typically, or it could be 1P1 if it's 120 volts. Now, one area we have had tremendous success here in the States and abroad are elevator applications. Why? All the new elevators have smart controls. They're all VFD PLC driven. Here we have some, I believe, ThyssenKrupp, where we've got the main power, the LAST 60, control voltage, SPT 1P1. Other applications, you can see different configurations here. Again, always looking for those 2 levels. Here in the States, we've had a lot of success dealing with Schindler, more success now dealing with ThyssenKrupp, and we've gotten inquiries from Otis here in the USA as well. I know in other parts of Latin America, we've had a lot of good success. So reach out, go for the elevator applications, especially areas where it's fairly lightning prone. Here's an application where you can see it's all in a compact little cabinet. You got the main, and you got the secondary controls for the elevator control boards. Some applications may be separated by the control board and the power. You may have a compact setup such as this. Main power LAST 60, secondary power the ST SP1P1. Some newer applications, you've got the little touch panel that can utilize protection. This may even be DC, so make sure you ask the right questions. Medical equipment, great application, MRIs, X-rays, CAT scans, highly sensitive, downtime cost in the thousands of dollars per hour, and degrades the patient care that hospitals are looking obviously to be able to apply. Medical laboratory equipment, blood analyzers, near infrared technology, RMSD-40s, SPT type units. And so we hate to say that every door is an application and every client's a customer. In actuality, it really could be. But we want to encourage our distributors and our partners to do is look for those high areas of perceived need. That's why for the last 7, 8, 9 years, we have been building case studies around the world of successful application to be able to demonstrate and to document that Sinetamer provides a true return on investment. It's really not about the price of the Sinetamer unit. It is about the value that it provides and the fact that if you make the investment, it'll continue to pay you back for years and years and years to come. So we close out this module. Remember, this is not an exact science. It is an art form. And typically, the only wrong answer is the wrong voltage. Thanks for tuning in to module number 5. Y'all have a great day.